National Comics Madam X #1, written by Rob Williams, art by Trevor Hairsine. This is the last of the National Comics as far as I can tell. And it is focused on someone named Madam X, who deals with tarot cards and future sight, but is not Madame Xanadu. It's very confusing. Anyway, we open up, she's talking about the cards, the tarot cards, they were introduced from the Book of Thoth from Egyptian mythology, but no one's supposed to have the gods' knowledge. And we see her having a vision of a zombie against a full moon. And we're in New Orleans, and there's this zombie who is just making his way through the gardens of this very uptown sort of district in New Orleans. And there's a neighbor who's looking outside his window, and he's like, oh, the Meachams, they're away for the weekend, but there's someone in their garden, and he sees it's the zombie. He's like, oh, geez, call 911. Something's going on. So the next morning, the police show up to investigate. And as they enter into the house, they see that the Councilman Meacham, who is the one who lives in this house, has been stabbed in the chest and is dead via a very ornate dagger. And at this point, our Madam X, her name is Nima, she has seen all of this, and she's like, oh, I can warn them, I can stop it from happening. But then her vision continues, and she sees a woman performing a voodoo ritual, and she immediately is like, oh my, and she rushes over to the phone, but before she can make it, phone starts ringing, and she's like, you're calling because Ben Meacham's dead, aren't you? And she's like, how do you do that? Anyway, yeah, get down here to the office. So we're down at the a law firm, and apparently, she was right. Ben Meacham is dead, and we meet up with one of her co-workers here named Salinger, who basically Nima is hired on in the same way that Psych, the TV show Psych. She's a consultant and she's psychic, and the boss there really likes her. He's an openly gay man named Mr. Lin. And Salinger's kind of like the straight no-nonsense, I don't believe in all this magic mumbo-jumbo, but you somehow know these things, so we're just going to roll with it. So anyway, they brought her down because they have a possible new client, and it is Lauren, I'm going to butcher this, Joucuff, one of the two ways. I'm going to say Lauren. And she was the woman that Nima recognized as the voodoo woman in her vision. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, clearly you recognize her because she's been all over the press, because apparently she thinks she's about to be arrested for the murder of Meacham, because they've had a very public feud where Meacham has basically told the public that he's going to bring down Lauren and all of her non-Christian ways. And Lauren proceeded to douse both him and his wife in blood, and saying oh, you cannot silence our religion. Here's a blood curse. So yeah, they've had a bit of animosity between each other. And we can get the explanation that Meacham is running for mayor of New Orleans. This was going to be his platform of getting rid of all the voodoo mumbo-jumbo. And Lauren was a up-and-coming, minor celebrity because she is running all these voodoo things. And people come down to a city that they built out in the swamp, a glorious, shining palace of otherworldly wonder, and wanting to see her voodoo magic. And Ben Meacham mocked their religion in a public, debate, more or less. And she didn't take too kindly to that, so she cursed him with blood magic. But she didn't kill him. But the knife that he was stabbed with did come from her. It was a declaration of war, more or less. So, not a good look. But the whole reason she came here was because Madam X is actually working with the law firm. And she's like, oh, I need someone who understands magic. And you understand magic. And we get Madam X's backstory of she was a celebrity sort of personality. She was able to do live predictions and stuff like that, until one day she made a prediction that a billionaire was going to be robbed, and then he was, and so he sued her into non-existence. So yeah, at that point now she's having to take these jobs with the police. So she starts pulling out cards saying like, okay, well, here I see your future and what you want and all this sort of stuff, but I do believe that you don't actually you didn't actually kill Ben Meacham. So yeah, we'll represent you. But at that point she actually does get arrested. And it's just like, all right, well, I did have a vision of something that night, but we need to go figure out what's up. So they head down to the Meacham's place and start talking to the neighbor who saw the zombie that night. And everyone's like, that's crazy. You're crazy. Like, you were sleepy, you were tired, you thought you saw something, it wasn't actually there. And he's like, I saw a zombie, goddammit. And then she chimes up and she's like, zombie only had one arm, didn't it? And he's like, yes, it did. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. And she's like, yeah, I saw a zombie in a vision, but zombies aren't real. Voodoo zombies aren't real. There's no point in getting all hyped up over it. But they go and talk to Lauren one more time. And Lauren's like, I didn't send a zombie. I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, all right, fine, whatever. But we do need to go talk to your little community out in the swamp, but there's no record of where it is. So can you point us in the right direction? And she's like, no. And then Madam X and her have a moment alone and is just saying like, here's the thing, Lauren. I don't think you're magic, but I am magic. Do you want to see what the cards say? What'll happen if you don't agree to work with us here and tell us what we need to know? And she's about to flip the card, and we don't ever see what it is, but I'm assuming it's the death card. So she gives up the location of the magic swamp city. They make their way down on like fan boat, and as they make their way, and it's just like, okay, so this is just going to be like a whole bunch of hippy dippy free love orgy people. So let's just go and get the info we need and get out. But as they get in there, they see that this place is like a shanty town. Like, it is a bunch of poorly made shacks and people who were very clearly high on heroin. And as they make their way in, they try talking to a couple of them, and they're just like, you have no right being here. This is our place, our magic. And Nima gets attacked by one of them. So Salinger goes and tries to get a handle on the guy. But the cards, they all fall, and they're pointing in the direction of a one-armed zombie. So, but it's just a silhouette of a one-armed guy. So Nima takes after the guy as Salinger's got his hands full with the other one. They make their way into the swamp. Some gators attack briefly, but then as it turns out, it's not a zombie. It's just a heroin addict. And he tries to attack Nima. Nima just fires off a taser. And the guy admits, like, yeah, Lauren sent me to Meacham's house dressed as a zombie in order to rile it up a bit more, in order to get more of a spook. But I didn't kill him. And so then Nima makes her way back to the little shanty town, and Salinger's been talking to one of the other locals, a woman who's pregnant. And it turns out the whole entire thing, and here's the whole plot, is that Ben Meacham was having an affair with this woman down in this shanty town, and he was going to leave his wife and was going to live with them. And it turns out that Ben and Lauren are actually longtime friends, and they actually staged this whole blood feud thing in order to get more eyes not only on Ben Meacham's mayoral campaign, but also on Lauren's voodoo thing. It was all just for the sake of fame and fortune. However, one day, Ben's wife followed him to this little shanty town and saw him having an affair. So she ran off, and later on that night, she killed him with the voodoo knife. So, yeah, we got all that. So, yeah, it was the wife who did it. And Nima and them are super not happy with Lauren. I'm just like, you literally, like, this is all your fault. You could have stopped this so much earlier, but because of your fame and fortune seeking ways, this all happened. This is all on you. You suck. So in the end, she got off on the charges of murder and all that. However, there was a lot of heroin in that town, so she's being tried on that. And the law firm has declined to represent her in that case. So in the end, we get a little cliffhanger of she drops one of her tarot cards. It's the death card, because of course it is. And when she picks it up, she gets a vision of her being shot dead by her partner Salinger. And Salinger comes up afterwards like, hey, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, dun dun dun. But of course we never see what comes of that, because this is a one shot. So I like it. I think it's a solid story. My only real critique in this is that, I don't know, it, like, they do a whole, I've glossed over a whole bunch of her doing card readings that like say like reading into the personalities of these people, especially Lauren. It still didn't quite come off as magic. Like, we know it's magic because she's actually having visions and we see those visions that she's having. But there's nothing externally of her like doing anything that seems like magic. Like, I brought up the TV show Psych before. I feel like that is a very apt comparison here. Where, yes, she is actually magic, but all the things she's doing are more so just like, I was just very observant, you know, or able to con these people. I would have liked to see her do more undeniably magic things. That being said, also, it was a ridiculously circuitous plot. I don't dislike that, but it was something that I had to, like, really slow down and take the time of, like, okay, but, like, what's actually happening? So, overall, good issue. I don't dislike it at all. I don't think it probably would have gone more than like a 6-issue series if it were to be an actual series, but it was a fine enough one shot on its own. So overall, I'm going to give it a 7. I think it's a nice solid read, but it's nothing super standout, especially in terms of these national comics. I think that Eternity was probably the strongest one, and the others were all very strong in their own right, but this one is probably on the weaker side. So 7 for this. And that's it for National Comics.